Trust is vital when you're in another country. You want to buy a home, set up business relationships, or apply for a residence permit. You need to be able to count on the best independent legal aid. 𝐲𝐻𝐻𝐻 is an international firm of lawyers with over 20 years experience and one single aim: for you to live at ease in Spain. In order to give you a clear, streamlined, and fast response, we work with a cross-disciplinary team of professionals specializing in the main legal fields: civil law, foreigners' affairs, business law, tax and financial law, and international law. And to ensure that you're kept informed and up to date with everything, we have 6 offices on the Eastern Coast. Whether you're from here or abroad, we will always stand by you and speak your language. Our relationship is based on openness, professionalism, and a commitment to finding legal solutions in your best interests and for your peace of mind. 𝐲𝐻𝐻𝐻, international lawyers.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, thank you for joining. I don't know if you can hear me properly now. We're back again on our regular webinars. Today, we're going to start talking about buying a property in Spain in a safe way. And the reason is because there is a way to buy properties in Spain. Buying a property is safe, but you need to do things properly by the book. I'm going to introduce you now in the panel 2 important and experienced lawyers. We've got Pedro Heredia. Hello, Pedro, can you hear me?
Hello, Ignacio. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Thank you. Very good. Then on the other hand, south in the Andalusia region, we've got Michael Davis. Hello, Michael. How are you today?
Hello, Ignacio. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you for joining us today, Michael. I know you are very busy and we appreciate your time. So thank you for that. And then we've got Julia up from the real estate agent here in Javier, Hamburg. Hello, Julia.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be with you.
Thank you for joining us today. Today, we're going to try to talk now about all the ins and outs on buying a property in Spain. I'm going to just give you some tips of advice, then it will pass on to Pedro and Michael, and then we will just do the tour if anybody is trying to buy a property, how will be the process. Okay, now back now to work. First thing, as we say today on the radio, Pedro and myself, buying a property in Spain is very safe. The only thing and the first tip of advice I will always recommend is to use and appoint an independent lawyer who will solely defend your interest in Spain. It is important that the lawyer that you have is very familiar with property law and very familiar with all possible scenarios and doesn't have any conflict of interest. That's very, very important. Then number 2, you'll need to make a decision whether you buy a property off plan or you buy a resale. I'm sure Michael later on will tell us all about the good news on the taxation side the people from Andalusia are having, which I think is great news as well. And then once you start buying a property, you will put some money down, a reservation deposit. Then hopefully, if it's stage payments with the builder, with the developer, it's very important to know what position you're signing that contract, whether you have bank guarantees, and then obviously the process of having a mortgage, important as well, and doing all the due diligence by the book, you know, important, whether it's urban land or rustic land, whether I'm sure you face problems with how many square meters, whether the cadastro map, it clicks with the land registry, and whether with reality, whether all the constructions are built properly. A lot of things that you need to check through your lawyer, and it's important to do all the due diligence, whether it's close to the coast, whether you've got the habitation license, whether you've got the non-infraction certificate, etc., etc., etc. So now, important, if you're buying off plan, it's very important you always do ask for the bank guarantees. That's your peace of mind. Okay, we've been handling a lot of court cases about claiming your money back because of this situation, and that's it, very good and very secure for buyers. Okay. Now, more important things, obviously, probably hire the services of a surveyor to make sure, especially on the urban land, on the rustic land, the exactly meters, etc., etc. I'm sure the process will be followed with, even if necessary, a mortgage, and organizing direct debits. And then we could discuss later on when is a good time if we sign wills at the same time, etc., etc. So I'm going to pass over to Pedro to give us some tips of advice when buying a property in Spain. I would like you to just, if you please, send us your questions on the chat, and then we'll be able to answer as many as we can within this hour of time. So I'll pass over to Pedro and then over to Michael. Thank you.
Okay, Ignacio, thank you very much for this explanation that you've done. This is an introduction, this fantastic introductions. And you have said correctly at the end, our work, whenever we are instructed in order to represent a client in a conveyance, representing in a purchase of a property. Obviously, what we at the end, our main objective is to check and be transparent with the client whatever the property has. At the end is, what about planning? What about catastrophe, which is a different public office? What about land registry? But to start, normally a client, whenever they see a property, they fall in love with a property, which we will be speaking about with Julia about the property market now, how it is. Obviously, there is the first phase. The first step is to make like a reservation fee, is to decide. Once you decide the purchase of any property, is just to pay. Normally, it's a reservation fee. It's a small fee, a small amount, which is just to put the property out of the market and take some time, some period. It could be like 2 weeks, 3 weeks time, for seller, buyer, and the agent to organize the information, the requirements for the buyer to be able to see all the information about the property and prepare the contract, the private contract. So normally in Spain it goes from a reservation contract, then around 2-3 weeks, more 1 month, a private contract where it's paid 10%, but could be early. Obviously, this is a standard period. Could be 1 week, could be more than 1 month, but normally I would say there's 2-3 weeks where it's paid. Normally it's 10%. 10% where obviously what we recommend is just whatever property you want to buy is decided, pay the reservation fee, and then come to us, and then we will follow and we'll check and we will make a perfect due diligence on the property. As you said, planning law, we apply for different reports. So there is a file open against that property. We apply for planning rules. We apply for land registry to see at the end all the charges, encumbrances, all the description. We need to see that the description in land registry is exactly the same as the description which is in the catastrophe office, and exactly the same as it is in real, the property. We need to have appointments with the client in order to say which are the client's need. For example, imagine that the client wants to build a bigger swimming pool, or wants to build a swimming pool because there is no swimming pool. Well, this is something that needs to be checked, or wants to build a second floor or an extension of another room. All these things before buying is important to know if it's possible or not, because sometimes, well, the planning rules in order to build or not, sometimes are a little bit complex to understand. Obviously, we take help with architects or surveyors from the area, local area, in order to do that. So first step is reservation document, then we go to a private contract where all the conditions, payment, stage of payments, and everything according to both needs of both parties are included, and well, it's signed, it's paid. And then sometimes the buyer wants to apply for a mortgage, sometimes not, and then there's a period of time decided by the parties accordingly in order for the stage of payments that the buyer can, the seller, and this decide when is going to be completion. Completion in Spain, at the end, is finalized into a public notary. It's a public office where parties sign a public document, a public deed, which is The conditions are like a private contract, where there is the price, the payments done, and the description and everything. And the final payment, the other 90% is paid through the own pocket or partially by a bank, and so on. Obviously, when a client comes to our office, we inform him, okay, you are buying a property of 200,000 euros, but take into account that the cost, in this case in Valencia region, where we are, is transmission tax is 10%, or value tax is 10% for off-plan. And if it's new property, is also a stamp tax of 1.5. Then notary and registry fees, our fees. So at the end, we like the client to know and understand what will be the final cost in order to, whenever he's buying a property. And of course, about taxes. I mean, what implication will be, I buy a property in Spain, I'm not resident. If I'm not resident, what kind of sort of taxes I would pay as non-resident owning a property, about council tax. And obviously, in a conveyancing process, it's always a must for peace of mind of the client to say that it's going to be changed, or the direct debits of the water, electricity, council tax, everything is going to be changed into the new owners. And that at the end, yes, the service obviously needs to be done in a way that the client has a peace of mind on buying the property. At the beginning, probably is the price is agreed, but there are some conditions that always are discussed and needs to be tied into our contract. But basically, Ignacio, this is the work in order to do in a conveyancing. This is the process, really. This is like these three steps. And obviously, there are many information that we could say, and obviously we get questions about that. Obviously, I will be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Pedro. I'm going to pass over to Michael. Michael's been very experienced as well in the past, ex-honorary consul, British consul, and he's going to give us a little bit of tips of advice about buying a property in Spain a safe way. Over to you, Michael. The microphone, please, on. Yes. There we go.
Pedro has explained it all perfectly. Now I'm just going to sort of probably say similar things again, but maybe just so that I don't leave anything else, I'll have to start from the beginning. The first thing that I always like to say, just to clarify things from the beginning, that is that it is absolutely, it's 100% safe to purchase a property in Spain if you use a good lawyer, a normal lawyer, a lawyer that knows what he's doing. It's 100% safe. Okay, that's the first thing I like to say. And the second thing is regarding expenses in Andalusia, because this is something that people don't realize, but you don't pay exactly the same taxes in different regions of Spain. So I'm going to talk for Andalusia, and obviously Pedro, Ignacio, you could clarify for up in the Valencia region. But in Andalusia now, it's fair to say that if you're buying a second-hand property, all the taxes and fees will come to under 10%, okay? And this allows for slight variations depending on one, not all solicitors charge the same, but if we say under 10% will be okay. If you're buying a new property, it's a bit more expensive because instead of paying the transfer tax at 7%, you pay VAT at 10% plus 1.2% document tax. Some people that have been researching the expenses will have noticed that there's something that sounds a bit different at the moment, and that's because we've just last week they've reduced the transfer tax in Andalusia to 7% instead of the sliding scale 8 to 10%. So that 10% for all taxes and fees is based on the new rate of transfer tax. Okay, so that's basically the sort of the situation in a nutshell. What we always say also is that, and I'm trying to sort of go into the few things that maybe Pedro hasn't touched on because he's basically covered everything already. One of the things that we get asked a lot is, when should they involve the solicitor? What is the order of play? I'm thinking about buying a property in Spain, I'm starting to look on the internet, I'm going out, when should I see a solicitor? Well, I think that the solicitors, finding the right solicitor is a very important part of the purchase process. Not in all cases, of course, but if something goes wrong, it's very, very important to have a solicitor that will avoid you actually losing any money or getting into trouble. So we always say, find a solicitor at the beginning. In other words, nowadays online, you can research from the UK, find a solicitor, maybe have a Zoom appointment with a couple of them to find the one that you feel comfortable with, and have him all lined up so that when you find the property through an agent, or online or whatever, before you actually hand over any money or do anything that could cause problems, speak to the lawyer. Sometimes you'll find that the lawyer will know the agent, so therefore he may allow you to put the €3,000 down to reserve the property immediately while he looks at the contracts, or maybe doesn't know the person at all, and therefore he says, don't hand over anything until I've seen at least the basic paperwork. The other thing I wanted to touch on is what Pedro's been discussing, mentioning about the property register, the catastro, etc. And the reason I want to point it out is that the property register has to be 100% correct. There's no doubt. It has to be. That is what determines ownership. Now, regarding the catastro, do we need it to be absolutely exact and tied up with the title deed to allow the purchase to go through? This is a more complex question because we all know that the catastro office is a bit of a disaster. It does not determine ownership. It only determines how much rate you pay. And there are many properties that are not rated correctly because their descriptions sometimes are based on aerial photos and things like that. So what happens if we're in a situation where the property registers a 100% correct description and you have a catastro aerial photo that shows the property to be larger and therefore you're paying a bit more rates than you should? Do you stop the whole process? Well, that's a difficult one to decide on because to change the description, the catastro, at least in Andalusia, can take up to a year. So what do you do? And we're talking about, in Andalusia, maybe 40% of properties don't have the correct description in the rates office. Okay, so I just wanted to put this out because sometimes I don't think we can give the same importance to what it says in the property register to what it says in the rates office. And that's about it really, because the process has been explained already by Pedro. So I think I'll wait until the questions start coming through.
Okay, thank you very much, Pedro Michael. Pedro Michael, if you will please put your email and Julia here, just because we're trying to cover now how is the normal scenario when buying a property in Spain through Julia. But if later on anybody wants to send you a specific question to your email or arrange an appointment with you, that will be great. Okay, so your email and telephone number, just in case so they don't forget, or in case somebody wants to jump out. I'm going to pass over to Juanfran just for 1 minute, and I will just pass it later on to Julia. How is the process of buying the property through a estate agent? Okay, Juanfran, over to you.
The world turns, and with each turn, a change. And each change makes it more complex, unpredictable, enigmatic. The world keeps turning. And from the Pellicer and Heredia practice, we anticipate everything that is going to happen. Brexit, artificial intelligence, new commercial borders, legal tech. The world keeps turning. And it commands the reliance on international lawyers who are capable of interpreting this new reality with integrity, honesty, and transparency, offering answers to so many new questions. Whatever it is, ask us. At Pellicer and Heredia, we know how.
Okay, thank you, Juanfran. I'm going to pass over to Julia, and she will explain where she's based, how the clients contact them, and how is the process from the time somebody chooses a property and how is experience. So over to you, Julia.
Thank you so much, Ignacio. First of all, I have to really say that your marketing is fantastic. Can you hear me well?
Yes, very
good. Thank God, I know that you live up to your marketing experience or image that you transport, because it's really inviting, and as a buyer I would feel very welcome and also very safe talking to you. Also, you speak a lot of languages. I think that's important for all of us. We in our office speak English, German, and Spanish as well. We are Germans. We're here at the Costa Blanca in the Valencian community, especially in 𝐏𝐵 and surroundings. That's how we met as well. And we are here for 50 years. It's a family business. So my grandparents started it in 1970. So we do have some experience in this area, right? So I mean, it was extremely interesting what you told us now, the order and so on, and I can say yes to all of these points, but not only do you have to have the right solicitor and all the right let's say legal advice, you also have to have some fun, because it's not only safe to buy in Spain, it's also amazing. And I think it's something that really all of us should have a look at, definitely, because it's definitely worth it. So getting right into it, I would like to share my screen for a minute so that you can see a little bit of our website, get to know us. So this is, one second, the screen here. I'm gonna try to get this somewhere else. Yeah, I can. Make it small. So here you are on our website. This is the contact page where you can type in your name and telephone number and a little text for us. Accept the privacy and send it over, and we will get back to you right away. But you can also go into the properties listing, choose a property that you like, go through it slowly, bit by bit, and have a first look, see if you like anything. You can even choose a favorite here, make a little favorite list. So I think first of all, it's so important to get a little bit of an overview of the market, also the different prices that there are, and the different options and qualities that the properties offer. Don't get scared of the high prices that we offer here. They're not all as high, but we are specialized in the luxury sector, as well as building and new built properties, but also existing second-hand properties. And we start normally at around 500,000 euros, which is interesting for the golden visa. But yeah, you can go higher. And we also have contact if you say you don't want to spend as much, maybe, don't worry, contact us anyway, because we can bring you in touch with the right people. And also, yeah, obviously with Pedro and Ignacio, but you already have the contact if you're viewing this. I think important, first of all, is to meet each other, to speak to each other, and that we find out who you are and what you're looking for. And especially if you're resident, non-resident, or if you're planning to live here all year round or not, and so on. And then we can also give you some information already. So I'd like to show you one example of a YouTube video that we've been doing. I'll just open it and have it run here in the background. This is something we will make for you, even especially for you if you are interested in one of the properties. That means it's a virtual tour or a video tour that we could do either live, or also we tape it and send it to you, whatever you prefer best. And then you can see the whole property, the whole house, all the advantages and dimensions as well, because sometimes from the photos, it's just not the same to see a property. This one is in Moreira, for example, and we go through the whole property. Can you hear me well and follow what I'm saying?
Yes, that's perfect,
yes,
Julia.
excellent.
Yes.
That's great. Okay, so this is one example. Also, last June, we were talking already. This is this same house from the video. And we were talking about a couple of properties, and it's true that the ones that we thought that will go have already gone. For example, Villa Oberon, this is a virtual tour of it, has been sold in the meantime. So we see that the market is very, very active. And people are here, people are traveling with their PCRs, and yeah, the interest is very, very high. And I think they have the right intuition, because Spain still has a lot of potential. You can see houses, older houses in good locations that have been reformed, have been made new or renovated, and that's also a very good investment. So please get advice as well on this topic, investment, tax, and so on. We also have some virtual tours, some of the villas, not all of them. If you wish to have floor plans, if you wish to have a virtual tour, please contact us. We take you by the hand and show you the properties. And then at some point, it's time to travel here, of course. And we offer you to pick you up from the airport. We are very happy to spend a couple of days with you to show you the area, find out if you're well off, if you stay in 𝐏𝐸𝐸 or maybe in one of the neighboring towns, because they all do have their advantages and disadvantages. And but I would say mostly advantages, to be honest. So yeah, come over, talk to us, and you can ask us any questions as well. We also have a buyer's guide and a vendor's guide. We are always looking for properties. If you are a owner of a property in Spain and you think about selling, you can always call us as well without any compromise and get some information. Yes, and we are very happy to speak to you.
Very good, thank you, Julia.
If I can speak more and more and more. I just don't want to bore you. So
okay, basically, Julia, before we just enter into questions and answer now, are you having a lot of video conference with people from abroad doing online tours? Are you doing a lot?
Yes, yes, we actually are selling houses like that. Yeah, we're having video conversations. We're also going to the properties, make videos. We have a special marketing guy now that yeah, works with us, I would say now for half a year or so. And we actually go to the property, film everything. I explain the property because I know them all personally. I think that's very important as well for you to not get any surprises later on. And yeah, we can speak as we are speaking now on Zoom or on the telephone, via email. Everybody's different and we will adapt to you.
Okay, that's excellent. Okay, now we're going to just jump over to questions. I think Michael is having some questions here as well. John is asking, if I buy a property for say 490 and pay 10,000 for furniture, etc., so 500,000 euros in total, does that still qualify for the golden visa, Pedro? Could you please explain how to qualify? Because yeah,
unfortunately, no. Golden visa, I mean, as has been said by John. Thank you, John, for the question. I think it's a good question. I mean, even though the investment on the property with the furniture is 500,000 euros, what the law says is 500,000 euros on the real estate, and bienes inmuebles. It says the specific word, because at the end it appears in a land registry certification what it says the amount of investment in the real estate without furniture. So the answer is not. Buy a property, you need to buy a property or different properties with a minimum, equal or minimum amount of 500,000 euros.
Okay, thank you, Pedro. We've got another question from Anne. She's saying if we could explain the taxation rules on bringing goods from the UK to a property in Spain. Anne Harley, thank you, Anne. I think there's an issue on the customs, probably what you're asking, and the one to answer to how much will be that is Manuel Samper, the one probably we did a different webinar with. And if you wish, we could send you his email direct. You need to specify to him how many things you're going to bring to Spain and how much tax you'll need to pay at the border. Okay, but is just customs basically here. Okay, and now we have Daryl McDonald here saying, do you need an NI number in order to make a deposit? I'm going to pass over to Michael if he wants to answer that. Michael, do I need an NI number to make a deposit? I think the microphone is off, Michael. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we don't need the NIE number for the deposit. In fact, normally we use the deposit contract as the document to justify to the authorities why we actually need the NIE number. I don't know if in Valencia it's the same, but down here you have to have some kind of document to prove why you need it. So here the normal thing is to use the reservation or the deposit contract.
Good, thank you, Michael. Yeah, in the community, in this community, Valenciana, to get an NI number, they don't request anything at the moment. Okay, so you know these extra-area rules change one day and the other, but at the moment it's pretty much straightforward. We're doing, unless the client is in here, we're doing with power of attorney because he keeps people out of the stress.
There is no need to sign a deposit to have an NI number. There's no need at this time. Obviously, when you complete, when you go a completion date, a notary office is, I mean, if it's with a mortgage, it's a must, and if it's not with a mortgage, could be signed a completion, but obviously in the following days, weeks, you need to have an NI number because it's a tax number that at the end you will pay transmission tax or stamp tax. So it's an obligation to have it. I would say before completion, even though there are some exceptions, could be done without a mortgage, and you would be able to sign but in the following days, weeks, you will have to have a NI number for sure. At the end, in order to go to the tax office to pay the transmission tax, transfer tax, needs to be done. But it's for signing a private contract or a reservation contract, there is no need.
Okay. Pedro, Daryl is asking, Michael just refer into the new taxation in Andalusia. Could you explain here in Comunidad Valenciana? Because Daryl is asking, is it 7% transfer tax for all of Spain? And obviously not, different regions, different percentages. How much is here in this community, Pedro?
Well, in Comunidad Valenciana, where we are based, the transmission tax or transfer tax is 10%. If you buy a property of 200,000 euros, will be taxed 20,000 euros. So it will be 220,000 euros plus notary fees, registry fees, our fees in this case. So it will be around, let's say, between 12 and 13% of the purchase
overall
price. You need to be able to now before buying or while you are buying to now that you will have enough money to buy. That is for resales. If you buy a new property of plan, that will be 10% value-added tax plus 1.5% stamp tax. So, and value-added tax, you will pay it directly to the developer, to this vendor, to the construction company. You will pay it directly to them. Full price, that will be included the value-added tax. And then on completion, after completion, 10 days after completion, because 10% transmission tax or stamp tax, if it's a resale plus the value-added tax that is being paid to the vendor, it will be paid 30 days after completion.
Okay. Michael, in Andalusia, is exactly the same. 30 days after completion, you pay the tax, correct?
Yes, exactly the same. Yeah,
exactly
30 days. 30 days.
Okay.
We do sometimes even sign the title deed without the NIE number, and we just agree with the notary. Sometimes there's a delay, and we just provide it 2 or 3 days later. It's just incorporated to the title deed later. It would be a problem if there was a mortgage though.
Right. It might be good advice probably if you're just probably people coming over to Spain, organizing the visa and things like that, to organize in advance these things so you're not rushing. Even if you appoint an independent lawyer to represent you, probably just to grant power of attorney to get you the NI number. So there is no need to do any queue at the extra-area office. And obviously from the day you start putting money down, it could be on its way. Okay. Now going back to the questions, and feel free to send us all your questions, and we'll try to answer as many as we can. Well, Shania has 2 questions. She has a Spanish NI number in the past, but my resident card expired a few years ago. Should I worry about renewing my card or knowing the NI number, which is just a number given for life? It should be sufficient for buying a property. 2, for a married person, should the property be on both names, or could it be just on one person's name? The latter would certainly minimize the bureaucracy. Thanks. I think it's a bit complex, the question. I don't know if, Pedro, would you like to stop? Because probably I'm not sure whether these people will need golden visa here. They said they had a Spanish NI number, which is a tax code. If you could explain what is an NI number, just briefly.
What I've understood, I will see if I can read. I mean, what I've understood is obviously that they have residency, and now there is. I mean, they went back to their country, and obviously they have not been residents. But they asked questions regarding the NI number, which was applied at the beginning or whenever they apply for residency, and it can be used now in order to buy a property. Obviously, yes, because the tax number is the same one. The other thing is it needs to be apply like a renovation or like, well, I mean, what needs to be a duplicate that this tax number exists, is get a full a page, whereas that tax number is updated, is correct. And obviously, I will suggest to check in the tax office that tax number is in their name, but obviously they will be able to buy property with this number, and there will not be problem at all.
What they say, Pedro, I think what they say, she had an NI number, but she had a residency card which expired. So I think they're non-resident if expired. Yeah, Michael. Yeah.
Yeah. What I would do is when she talks about the NIE number, which I think I get the impression that maybe she hasn't got the certificate anymore. The actual NIE number, the certificate lasts for 3 months. So what I would do is check with the tax man on the online system to see if that number's registered. If it's registered, I'd print out some fiscal stickers, and with that there'd be no problem. But if they didn't register the NIE number within its original time span of 3 months, then they'd have to do a new one. It may hopefully, normally one would find that it's been registered with the tax office, and then you can just print out your own fiscal stickers.
That's good. That's good advice. And so, I mean, she's asking whether she'll be renewing her card, well, residency card. Right. That's good advice, Michael, for that. And for a married person, should the property be on both names? I think we're going back to the questions whether she's got a residency card, and I don't know what country she belongs to, because obviously I don't know whether she belongs to a third country, non-European country, or just European. Because if you're European, I wouldn't be very much worried because you will not need a visa. But if you're going to apply for a visa, Pedro, if you want to discuss about the importance of putting in one name or the other, because we have a lot of issues on these, especially because of all the visa.
What it looks like, the question, I mean, obviously, is that the bureaucracy, this is what I understood, is the bureaucracy of applying for the NI number for one of the spouses, or maybe for 2 of them. As it's been said, obviously, check tax office, as I said, also, if it's updated, perfect. If you don't apply for a duplicate, the number will be exactly the same one. Perfect. With one of you, it's okay. But if the intention really is to buy property in both names, that's perfect. If it can be, I mean, this is at the end an agreement by marriage. If it's bought in one of the names, if your economic marriage, if your agreement by marriage is that property, even though it's in one name, is really into both names, perfect. Can be bought in one name, absolutely yes. But obviously, as a married, where the funds come, at the end you need to understand which is the ownership really. If it's totally separated, assets separated, or is it jointly, even though it's in one name. So I think that, I mean, the bureaucracy to apply in a number is I wouldn't say it's too complex. Yeah, I mean, obviously people can come here personally, they need to sign a power of attorney in their own country and send it to Spain, to the solicitor, and then, well, it takes, I mean, some bureaucracy, obviously, can be done also in the Spanish consulate in whatever country is obviously. And but if the intention is to buy, I mean, both of you want to buy property with both names, I would suggest you obviously to apply for the number for the one who doesn't have, to the other one to check and update it in tax office and immigration office, apply for a duplicate, and then sign up of attorney in order to do that, to apply for the number. Can be bought in one name. Obviously, in the deed, it needs to be said married with whoever, according to the marriage agreement. Needs to be said some things that is important to do that. And obviously, in the future, whenever it's sold, it may occur some problems. But if the intention is to avoid bureaucracy, I think that just for the NI number, I think they should be done that way, in order to do it in both. If it's the NI number is not complex, just apply for that and do it that way. I don't know if Michael have a different answer, but I think as a married, well, if could be bought by one name, no, there's no problem. According to the economic marriage, no problem with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it will be important for them to discuss it at the time. It was about, because depending on your personal circumstances, might be worth to do one way or the other. For example, from an immigration point of view on the golden visa, definitely to reach the necessary amount, yes, it will be recommended. But probably if you're not going to need that, and your marital regime is communal assets, or it might be worth it if it's the normal thing, 50-50. Then, but I think it might be good and worth it discuss it specifically when they could confirm their situation.
For the golden visa, let me just specify one thing, Ignacio. I mean, imagine that, let's put an example, a real example. A couple is buying a property of 800,000 euros. And those 800,000 euros, if a married couple is buying the property, and is buying through economic marriage, a marriage which is totally separated, so each one of them buys as a separate, individually, a person without being in a marriage community. At the end, each one of them is investing 400,000 euros, not 500,000 euros. So any of them could not apply for the golden visa. But this is what you said. I mean, it needs to be said that it's a married community asset, even though it's bought 50%. A property of 500,000 euros could be bought in this situation, could be applied the golden visa by one of them as a principal and the other one as a family member, and will not be any problem. So it's important for the golden visa on figures between 500,000 euros and 1 million euros to specify it and be informed before that this situation may reject or may approve a golden visa. Obviously, when it's more than 1 million euros, there is no problem because it's always be more than 500,000 euros and 500,000 euros. But between 500,000 euros and 1 million euros, it's important to check this.
Okay, thank you, Pedro. Now let's go back to questions here. I think Robert is saying, if either of you, you said, my question was about when to seek a solicitor advice. If I recall correctly, for a new property, once decided and a small deposit is made and before a contract is signed, this is when a client should seek support from a reputable law firm. Well, my advice is whenever you're going to commit yourself, even if possible before doing any deposit, just to seek independent legal advice, just to make sure whatever you're going to do is correct. Now, I know sometimes you don't have the time and you really want to book and pay deposit down. It might be worth it to mention that you will pay that based on having all the legal paperwork in order. Okay, but my advice is if you're going to have a solicitor anytime, during the process of conveyancing, it will be worth it you having it from the very beginning before you commit yourself. Okay, that's from our experience, and then it will be good advice. Now, going on the panel, we've got here Gavin is asking, Michael, could you please explain non-resident tax, how it works and when it's due? I think it's a national tax, and Gordon Gavin is asking when do they need to pay the non-resident tax? Do you want to cover just 1 minute for that?
Okay, so once people have purchased their property, once somebody's purchased their property and their solicitor's done all the normal things and normally will have set up the electricity, the water, the rates, the rubbish, and the community of owners by direct debit, there's just one extra obligation once a year if they remain non-resident, which is to file what's called the 210 form, hypothetical income tax form. They call it different. Can you see me?
Yes.
You see me?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So, so once a year, normally via an accountant or a solicitor, but you can do it yourself if you feel up to it and you've only got one property, you're allowed to do it yourself. I don't recommend it because then if the tax man writes to you with any questions or anything, you won't have anyone in Spain to sort of represent you and sort the problem out, and they do happen. But basically, the non-resident tax, what they do is the tax man considers that if you don't rent, even if you don't rent out your property, they basically consider that you've made a hypothetical income of 1.1% of the cadastral value of the property, which is a value that appears on your rates bill, which is normally 40 or 50% below the market value. And they consider your income is 1.1% of that, and then they tax you at 24.75% of that amount. Conclusion, that if you've got a flat that market value is 200,000, 200 to 300,000, you may be paying anywhere between 250 and 250 and 500 euro a year in this hypothetical income tax. Regarding when you present it, you always pay it 1 year in arrears. So you've got the whole of the year to pay for the previous year's tax. So normally, once you've sort of found a solicitor or an accountant to file it for you, you'll probably see that that particular solicitor will say, I do it every year in February or in April or in March. But the theory is that you have got all the way until the end of the December of the following year to declare the previous year's tax.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Let's move on. I think we've got here another question from John. If I buy a property for over 500,000 euros and get golden visa, but spend less than 183 days each year in Spain, do I have any tax liability either on the sale of the property, or do my heirs have any Spanish tax liability on my death? I don't know, Pedro, if you want to cover this question, because we've got some inheritance that Michael could just discuss, and then some tax liability on non-resident tax, which is being answered by Michael.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, John, what is saying, I mean, obviously, I mean, you buy a property in Spain or properties over 500,000 euros, obtain golden visa, and you get authorization to be resident as an investment, as por inversor, tercer residente por inversor, as an investor. Okay, well, if you spend less than 183 days, and this is correct, I understand that you say that. If you spend less than 183 days, then you will not be taxed subject to declare your worldwide income and declare assets worldwide in Spain. So you will not have to make tax return and the worldwide income. Obviously, buying a property in Spain, you will have to make what Michael have just said is the non-resident tax just because owning a property in Spain. So it is important that the golden visa, if golden visa do not reject you automatically a tax return in Spain. If you live in Spain more than 183 days in Spain per year, then you will be a tax resident. If you live less, you will not be tax resident. The opportunity that the golden visa gives you is the flexibility to go back and forwards into Spain and the Schengen area. That's perfect. Okay. About tax liability, obviously we're talking about a property and real estate, and real estate in, I would say, most of the tax rules in the European countries are attracted on the place where the real estate is, which means that taxes in most of the countries are paid in the place where the country is, even though you and your beneficiaries are non-resident. Then, of course, will come into effect the double taxation treaties between Spain and whatever country you are based and resident, in order to deduct whatever payment is being done in Spain accordingly. But that is something that obviously we can give you like a simulation on that. I mean, if you tell us which is your country, if it's maybe it's UK, or in order to see what will be the amount on these situations. Okay, I think it's more or less the situation. Obviously, between beneficiaries, there are deductions depending on the region. Obviously, there is no residence. There would be a general rule for non-residents in Spain for inheritance, which is also different. But yes, I mean, would be a tax liability which will be able to be deducted.
That's very good. Okay, let's move on. I have a question here from I think it is from Patrick, just to give him a budget on general legal costs for a purchase of 100,000 euros in Valencia region for an existing house. I think do you want to cover that, Pedro? Roughly how much will be transfer tax, notary fees, register fee, and solicitor's fees? Yeah.
Yeah, what I said before, I think it was between 12 and 13%. Normally, solicitor or lawyer applies for 1%. A minimum sometimes is 1,200 euros plus value tax, which probably will be this amount in this case in the Valencia region, and also 10% tax. So at the end will be let's think about 12%, 13% as an amount. Obviously, apply for a fixed number, even though the notary and registry fees is approximately, but think about those numbers between 12 and 13%. Okay, and also there is a question regarding co-ownership and intention to divide it later into 3 parts. Yeah, obviously that situation may avoid. I mean, of course, you in that terms you are going to make it like a gift to your children in order to buy a property and put it in their names. Well, that's something that should be discussed, but obviously in the future we'll avoid something as inheritance.
Right. Let me just add. Obviously, not all the conveyancing are pretty much the same. So normally, with regards to the notary fees, are based on the purchase price, register as well. So the fees vary a little bit, and normally we will just limit per hours here on what is normally more than reasonable hours to cover that. But that situation, you'll need to clarify whether that property, 100,000 euros, is going to be in rural land, inland, or just urban land, because obviously the amount of time probably and expenses might vary. As I discussed at the very beginning, it's not the same to buy in the inland area because it's got a lot of work, especially if it hasn't been legalized properties or the extension of meters. They don't click with the cadastro. So, but just as a roughly idea, I think it could be fine to start with. We have George asking, can I pay for a property but buy in my daughter's name, or should I transfer the funds to her first? I don't know if, Michael, would you like to go over that one?
Yeah.
There's Georgie.
Okay. Well, obviously, there's 2 transactions there, a donation and a purchase. So I don't know if these people, are they in the UK or?
We really don't know.
Okay, well,
I don't know if they could just tell us.
If they're in the UK, they'd have to make the donation in the UK. And in the UK, if you make a donation to your daughter and you survive them by 7 years, then there's no donation tax on that money. So if that person donated to the daughter in the UK, sent the money over to Spain, and we made a normal purchase in Spain in her name, that would be one option. The other option, if for some reason they don't want to do a donation in the UK, here in Andalusia, they could send the money over in his name, and we could make the donation from father to daughter here in Andalusia. And in Andalusia, it would be almost exempt because it's 99% exempt donation father to daughter. And then we make a normal purchase in the daughter's name. So that would be the option. So, but if it was another region where donation tax isn't exempt, well, it could be a bit more complicated, but there's always the option of doing it in the UK. But the key in the UK is that you have to survive by 7 years. Otherwise, you have to pay inheritance tax on that money.
Right. Pedro, would you like to add something else to that, or shall I move on?
No, let's go for a new one. Yes.
Okay. Right. Julia, would you like to give any advice? Because your company has been, you said 50 years, so it's a lot of experience. Would you like to give some more tips of advice before moving on? Do you want to mention anything else or anything related to your business?
Well, yeah, there's a lot to mention for sure, but I think the most important is exactly the legal advice. Inform yourself very well. Make sure that you have a trustworthy agent, a good agent. I think sometimes maybe takes a little bit of time to answer, but when they are with you, they should be 100% with you and really listen to you. And then they will hopefully offer you what you really need. Sometimes people think they know what they want, and that's not 100% what would be good for them to purchase. So listen to that advice, inform yourself well, don't buy the first property you see, obviously. Go around and also check the areas around, not only the house, but yeah, also the town, different seasons maybe. Take your time. This is usually not the main property, but a holiday home or a secondary home. So bring your family and friends, maybe try to have some more opinions without rushing into anything, and have everything checked, please. If you want to take the decision to buy maybe a house where catastro is not absolutely perfect, that's fine. That might not be a big issue, but you have to be aware of what you're deciding on and what the consequences are. Ask a lot of questions. Always check the sun situation, because you're here in the end of the day to enjoy the sunshine. And feel free to contact us.
Okay, thank you, Julia. Going back to the questions, Gavin is asking whether it will be recommended to make a will, obviously. And yes, as soon as you have assets in Spain, I will highly recommend you to make a will in Spain to protect your assets here. At least one here, and the other one, as Gavin says, in the sunny Scotland as well, okay? I always recommend it, unless you don't have very many things or just money, and you could do international will covering here and the UK. But yes, and with regards to the question for Colin, the normal, it is a question for Julia, but probably is more for the lawyers. What is the cost of the solicitor in advance of paying a reservation fee? Well, as we said, the normal average, I think in Andalusia and this region, will be an average of 1% plus VAT, depending on complexities as well and the hourly rates. On the type of conveyancing. There are certain conveyancing is very complex, sometimes are easy, but that's a general rule. Now we're going to share with you, Juanfran is going to share with you a video about Costa Blanca, so you could just from your home understand what areas. It's only 2 minutes video, and the whole thing
maybe because I was born on the Mediterranean, I feel so connected to this sea, to this land, to this light. Because the Costa Blanca is my passion, it's my life, it's who I am. It defines me as a person and sets me apart from the rest. Yes, it's important not to forget who we are and where we come from. That helps us understand the meaning of our lives. By this sea I was born and grew up, laughed and cried too, the emotions of life. Our land is health and well-being, the joy of living, in our own way, in our own style, authentic. That's why so many artists come to the Costa Blanca looking for inspiration, to capture the essence, that light that defines our character, and not just artists. So many people come here and stay. The sky, the landscape, the rosy sunsets, the warm sand under your feet, the sea breeze on your skin, the mountains, and seeing the sea from the heights. I love to close my eyes, take a deep breath, and feel the sun on my eyelids. As if the light was inside me. I can't explain it. As my grandmother used to say, life is full of inexplicable things. You have to live them, feel them. I had to live in other parts of the world to really value what we have here. I have everything I need. My future is here. I've learned to enjoy the little things, the little pleasures in life. And we know a lot about those. There's nothing more authentic than feeling happy in the place where you were born. And however hard I try, I can't explain it in words. Costa Blanca, authentically ours.
Okay, thank you very much. So see you on our next webinar. Thank you, Julia, for your time. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Michael. And everything is recorded just for those who did miss it. Have a good evening. Goodbye now.
Lovely. Thank you, everybody.